Visualizing data is the necessary stage of data exploration that routinely protects from embarrassing errors, as modern tools place data visualization in the focus of research workflows, and the need to visualize data is gaining increasing recognition among researchers. However, impressive and efficient graphics are quite rare in the ever-growing universe of dry academic tests. Many of the bad graphical design choices are justified by nothing but suboptimal defaults and various software legacy issues, and mostly outdated limitations imposed by traditional scientific publishers. In this talk, Dr. Ilya will focus on simple and powerful design choices that help uncover your data and tell story. So to talk more about this topic is Dr. Ilya. And Dr. Ilya is an assistant professor at the Interdisciplinary Centre on Population Dynamics, Odense DK. His current research is focused on sustainability on patient systems under the changing mortality and the analysis of excess deaths due to COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Ilya received a PhD in demography from University of Groningen in 2020, defending a dissertation that is changing regional inequalities in aging across Europe. He is following demography, science of science, research ethics, and dataviz, which he adores, practices, and develops and teaches as well. Over to you, Dr. Ilya.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Nyoke. And hello, everybody. It's a big pleasure to be here. It's a great opportunity to share some ideas on data visualization to this wide and very interesting audience. So let me share my screen. Start sharing. As Nyoki nicely introduced me, I'm a demographer. Demography is, simply, for simplicity, we may say population statistics. So we deal with with loads of data and try to deal with data carefully and intelligently. And usually one very straightforward and direct way to understand a lot about your data is to visualize the data. So it's a necessary step in any research that we are doing. And it so happened that over the period of my PhD, I got interested in visualizing data and started practicing it. You can see this image printed as a poster behind me, and I also put it here on the screen. So this is just an example of an I would say overly complicated plot, but this is one of my favorite plots. I think it's just a nice illustration how much information you can stuff in one image, and how you can tell quite an interesting story with just one image. So this figure is coming from a paper we wrote with my friend Jose Manuel Aburto, and he's a Mexican demographer. So he studied the spike of violence in Mexico, and what you see here on the central plot are the 32 states of Mexico, and each small multiple represents a state. And we have data from 1990 to 2015 and ages from 15 to 50, and within each small multiple we have a heat map that shows us the main causes of death of young males in these states. And we can, the main point of this exercise was to basically show these pink candles, these spikes of violence, which, the latest one accompanied the so-called war on drugs that happened in Mexico, the big policy that caused a lot of violence in the country. So in just one figure, you can have a snapshot of the recent history of excess young male mortality in the country. So this is the kind of visualizations that can help us uncover a lot with just one simple glance. Okay, I will not stop longer on this, but just to illustrate. And what I want to stress is that data visualization I have no formal training in data visualization. So it just came to me via practicing, via following a lot of cool guys out there on Twitter, on Stack Overflow, just out there in the internet. Yeah. So and eventually I started systematizing some thoughts and experiences that I gained along this way, and started teaching the course. So this is a tweet and an announcement of the most recent course that I taught this summer. Well, mainly to demographers, but not only. Was well, rare positive side effect of this pandemic. It gave a new opportunity to give large online events. So this course was followed by more than 150 people, participants from all around the world. It's well, it's a great experience and opportunity. But yeah, I want to stress that I came to teaching data visualization in a rather naive way, well, learning via doing. So, and not so much focusing on the research side of data visualization. It's a big field. This is actually a quote from my acknowledgements page of my dissertation. So I put it in the dissertation that I'm really very grateful to the amazing and supportive community around R. Well, all the researchers, and not only researchers who are practicing R, are very supportive out there online. Well, that's another reason why I'm super happy to be here today, because Our Ladies is yet another amazing community, and I'm happy to well, to contribute to your activities. But so the main point why I made this detour about me being not a trained expert in data visualization, I want you to take everything that I tell today with a grain of salt. So feel free to disagree with me. I'm very much looking forward to critical comments after the presentations. So my today's presentation is about the rule of thumb principles that I formulated in data visualization. Some of them might be, well, too strongly formulated. So I would be super happy to hear if you strongly disagree, or whatever comments you have. So just know that, well, in each strong case, strong saying, I might be terribly wrong, and I would love to hear if I am. Yeah. Okay. On that note, let's proceed to the so-called rules. Well, and again, the word rule I would put in the quotes and quotes. Yeah. But I want to formulate several simple recommendations, rules that can help you improve data visualization, and well, in some cases, protect you from embarrassment, as I will show you now. So the rule number 0, and the most important one, is do visualize your data. It is very important to explore your data before you proceed to any formal analysis. You should know how your data looks like, and simple exploratory data analysis can really save you from embarrassment and help you understand what you are doing. There is a famous example of, well, I think it comes from a paper from the 70s, the so-called Anscombes Quartet. So these are the 4 data sets that give you exactly the same correlation between 2 variables. But if you actually plot the data sets, you see that the nature of the data is completely different. Yeah. So if you rely only on summary statistics, you will lose this information. There was a recent implementation of the same idea, and unfortunately, the stop image just spoils the fun. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it's a bit small, but all these data sets, they share the same summary statistics, mean, median of the 2 variables, the standard deviations, and the correlation you see up to the three third digit, all the same summary statistics, but the underlying data may be completely different. And I think, if I'm not much mistaken, this particular data set was with a dragon, was given at some hackathon, and one of the side ideas was to see whether the teams would actually understand that they're dealing with a non-standard data set. Okay. So, but let me give you another cool example. Okay, this one, yet another recent example coming from the popular 30 days chart challenge that was booming on Twitter in April. An image of, again, 5 data sets that share the same summary statistics. And if you visualize these summary statistics with Boxplot, this would look like exactly the same data sets, but well, they actually the distributions are completely different. And I want to make a small side note here that today in the audience we have, in the audience we have Cedric Shearer, a great data visualization designer working in R, and he recently published a great blog post exactly on this topic: how to better visualize a lot of data with different approaches to distributions. Yeah. Hi, Cedric. Let me give you another cool example. So what you see on the screen is the so-called ulum spiral, and when it was invented somewhere in the beginning of the 20th century, ulum was just a mathematics student who was sitting on a lecture, and he started sketching this spiral, putting numbers on the edges. Yeah, here you see. So basically, we have one step here, a step of 2 here, a step of 2 here, and then step of 3, step of 3, step of 4. Yeah, you see. So the numbers go on the spiral, and he noticed that more often than not, primary numbers are appearing on the edges of this spiral, and this purely, I don't know, notebook sketching discovery by a mathematics student, it actually unfolded a whole area in mathematics research, which brought to quite substantial discoveries about the nature of prime numbers. And if you think this is something completely off the ground and has no real meaning for our everyday life, all our computer security, well, maybe not all of it, but quite a lot of the methods in computer security are based on different implementations of prime numbers. So these discoveries in this field of research are very important and applicable, and it all started with just visual exploration. So here is just a comparison of ulum spiral versus just a completely random spiral, and you see there are much more regularities in prime numbers that don't exist in just a random sample. Yeah, and actually there were other researchers who later on reformulated this idea and plotted this spiral differently, and they see even more regularities in the data. Yeah, and if you follow science, recently you might have noticed there was a lot of noise about one very important paper that relied on faked data, and it was a big scandal with a very hilarious twist in the story, because one of the co-authors of the paper, the one who was responsible for the data, was famous for studying dishonesty. So his name is Daniel Ariely, and researchers found out that one of his most famous papers relies upon a data set that is clearly fabricated and fake. Yeah. So in this particular experiment, he had, well, you can read about the whole story, but he used the data on the mileage driven by cars in this particular experiment. And on the left here, you can see, well, a pretty normal distribution that you would normally see in real data of that kind here. And on the right is the distribution of the values that were used in his experiment. And this clearly comes from a uniform distribution. And it's absolutely impossible that such a distribution would reflect real life mileage driven. Yeah. And yeah, just an example, even if you're co-authoring with someone on a paper, well, it makes sense to do exploratory data analysis and, well, touch your data and see what's going on there. Because it turned out later on that his co-authors on the paper were really upset, and some of them were pushing forward the investigation because they at some point realized that, well, something's wrong in this story and things don't replicate. Yeah. So, well, exploratory data analysis can save you from a lot of problems and eventual embarrassment sometimes. Okay. Let's go to the so-called rules. So the first one that I want to put forward is that in the plots, text should be horizontal. As a general rule, of course, there can be meaningful exceptions, but generally we like to read horizontal text. Nobody loves to, well, crack their neck like this and try to read what's written by some crazy angle on your plot. Yeah. And there are, well, too often we see text that is not horizontal in the plots for no obvious reason. And one of the most popular example is the usual bar plot, probably the most popular type of plot that you can see in any published literature. And it's well, to me, it's not clear why people keep placing these bar charts with vertical columns and not just rotate them 90 degrees, and then all of a sudden all the text in the plot becomes horizontal, and it's just easier to for your readers to digest your plot. Yeah. Well, this particular image came as part of this same 30 days chart challenge. And I actually, well, started a small initiative with the hashtag rotate the damn plot. So I try to formulate these simple rules as hashtags, but I haven't yet pushed forward this idea. So here is a blog post on the dot plots with, well, pretty much the same idea. So some examples of really difficult to read plots that I found in my subset of the literature. And, well, these are the plots that I produced earlier at some point. And this is the final plot that went in my paper, which I think is just nice and clear and easy to read and show a lot of information in one plot. And here is another example. Well, just a typical plot from the published literature. It's again coming from my subset of literature, from demographic literature, and I used this plot to just illustrate how you can easily rebuild the plot, rotating it 90 degrees, and all of a sudden things get easier to digest. Yeah, and I will later share the slides, and you can explore all the links, and they all have code that you can use to produce the same plots. Yeah. The second rule, I would say, never be afraid to increase the size of a font. Too often, text in the figures is difficult to read. It's just too small. And this is especially important when you produce slides for a live presentation. Well, Zoom being quite a big exception, because each one of you is sitting in front of a screen and can see in fine details what's happening on the screen. But still, when you present, okay, yeah, this is where I actually wanted to show this Twitter account that I created for these simple rules, but I haven't yet invested much in it. You can explore. Here is an example of a slide from real slide that I took at a conference. And well, if you're sitting back in the room, in a dark room with a normal beamer, it's borderline impossible, even if you have a perfect eyesight, to read everything that's happening on this slide. Yeah. And actually, this particular figure would be a perfect candidate for rotate the damn plot. Yeah. So you can just rotate it 90 degrees and all of a sudden all the text becomes horizontal and you have a lot of space to increase the font, and then everybody can read it perfectly. Another example, well, a keynote lecture given by my supervisor, and well, he's a Dutch professor, Leo van Wissen. Well, this is amazing feature of Dutch academic culture. There, Dutch people are very direct, and they prefer to hear direct comments, direct criticism. So it was no problem at all for him to. Well, I asked Leo if I can use photos from his keynote as an example of non-optimal dataviz in a presentation, and of course he said no problem, of course. But here is an interesting example. So in his presentation, he used otherwise brilliant visuals from the project Our World in Data, and the same plots that look just brilliant, perfect on your screen, when you put them on a slide, all of a sudden they're suboptimal and it's almost impossible to read anything there. And a rule of thumb, I would say, would be to take a photo on your phone in the audience of the slide and see if you can actually read something on the screen of your phone. And if you cannot, well, then nobody can read the slide. Yeah. Well, here is just one figure from the running project, and I'm not claiming that everything is necessarily perfect there, but my point here is that even for the published papers, don't be afraid to enlarge your text to a lot. Yeah, nothing bad happens. Everything becomes readable. You can shrink your image a lot in the paper if needed. You can put this figure on Twitter and it will be readable on a phone screen for a person who would be just going through the Twitter feed. Yeah. So no need to make your text labels small. This is the main point. Rule number 3, mind colors, and especially mind the colorblind friendliness of all your chosen colors. There is a great web page where it's part of the TopTal portal. So it's basically just a web page where you can insert any other web page, and you can see side by side how the page that you just inserted, how it looks like for a person with a certain type of color blindness. And of course, the worst combination of colors is green and red. And unfortunately, these are the colors that are overloaded with other meanings. So people often use them in the visualizations. Well, basically just something arbitrary, good and bad. And well, just know this is the worst choice. And I was completely surprised when I started dealing with this project. You can see again behind me this figure. With my friend Jonas Scholle, we were developing this ternary color coding approach, And in this particular case, the colors are produced by the data itself, and it was not possible to make it colorblind friendly. And I started, well, when we were drafting this image and drafting the paper, I was approaching people for feedback, and all of a sudden I realized how many people around me are just fellow researchers have, to some extent, to some degree, difficulties distinguishing colors. So their estimates, well, the estimates are quite different, but up to 10% of male population might be colorblind. So it's actually quite a prevalent problem, and people not always talk about it. But as someone designing your visuals, you should always think about it. And as a rule, you should not use the colors that are not distinguishable by colorblind people. And there are great tools in R that allow you to check for colorblind friendliness and adapt your colors. But probably the most important and the main source of all kind of imperfectness in data visualization is just the unfortunate legacy decisions. For some reason, many of the defaults are not optimal, and many people treat red and yellow, green, sort of the traffic light colors, as one of the reasonable defaults. No, it's not a reasonable default. Yeah. So in the R world, there is an amazing package, Viridis, that was recently enlarged to include several more very cool color palettes. Well, if you're using R, and you are using R, I assume, Viridis should be the default color scale to use, I would say. Rule number 4, attention is a very valuable resource, and it has its limit. So if you want to tell your story with the data efficiently, you should think what and how you highlight with your annotations in the plot. And there was recently, well, I loved this tweet a lot, a hilarious tweet. This guy, Alex, he's chief of graphics designers in The Economist, and he posted this tweet. So when we see this photo, we're immediately dragged to the knees of this girl, and well, we try to understand, well, why is it highlighted? What's going on there? What's so special about her legs, her knees? And then, of course, okay, well, just coincidence, yeah. But I think it illustrates nicely the power of highlighting. So whatever you highlight would immediately attract maximum attention of the readers, and you should use it to empower your data storytelling. Here is another example. This is one of the many blog posts by a person who was, well, he doesn't post anymore for some reason, but he was crazy about Barcelona and specifically Lionel Messi. So he posted a lot of analysis there. I think this blog post is just a nice example of, well, many different visuals in this post. How you can use direct annotations and highlighting with colors some elements to tell the story and immediately drag attention to the key points of your story. Yeah. So I think this blog post is just full of nice visual examples. Yeah. You have some background data to show that a lot is happening there, and then you highlight the interesting cases. I think the last one was cool here. Yeah. So here you have again, well, a very an image loaded with a lot of data, and then you highlight what's important and build your story around the highlighted points. And another example I want to show here, well, this comes from a guru of data visualization, John Byrne Murdoch, who works in Financial Times. And I want to show you this plot. So it's you probably saw it multiple times on Twitter and elsewhere. I think this is just a gold standard example of how you can think about each particular element of your data, of your plot, of your data visualization panel, and use it efficiently. Yeah. So there are lots of small and cool decisions that went into this plot. For example, for some reason, our convention is that the labels on our axis are usually on the vertical axis, we have labels on the left. On the horizontal axis, we have labels at the bottom. Why? If we're dealing with time series, quite often we're more interested in the most recent data entries. So it makes perfect sense to put the vertical axis labels on the right, to directly where people would look first, yeah, to the more recent data. So John, actually, at the very end of my slides, I leave a link to this video. John gave an amazing talk at our studio conference, telling what he learned during the pandemic wave, visualizing the pandemic data. And I think it's a brilliant talk where you can learn from an expert a lot of data design thinking. Rule number 5, and I think this is very important. It's always tempting to stuff as much as possible in the plot to uncover most of the dimensions of your data. But plots don't have to be too complicated to be powerful. And I want to give you several examples. So this is the famous climate stripes plot, which actually, has almost no usual elements of a plot. Yeah, so it's just time series of global temperature encoded as colors, and that's it. But we can immediately see what's happening there and how this plot relates to the narrative that we hear about the changing climate. This plot, I think, became super famous. Another example, it's a plot coming from an Austrian demographer. He visualized all the football matches ever played between Austria and Germany. And so Austria is red, Germany is black, yeah. And on the vertical axis, he put the number of goals that each team scored. So if the first ever match played by the two teams was 3-2, Austria won, yeah. And then if it's draw, it's a gray point here, yeah. So in one image, very easy to read, you have all the results of all the games ever played by the two football teams. Amazing. It's more than 111 games back then, yeah. And it's super simple. And even, I'm not fluent with German, and I assume most of you are neither fluent in German, but we can actually read the plot and understand what's happening there easily, because it's beautifully designed, yeah, and it's very simple. Another super simple and powerful plot is coming from 538. So this plot visualizes the oldest people in the world. So each line starts when the person becomes the oldest living in the world, and it ends with a dot when the person dies. So the longest line is Jeanne Calment, the lady who lived 122.5 years. Yeah. And again, in just one simple plot with simple lines and dots, the author of the plot managed to stuff all the history of the world longevity records in just one image. Amazing. And also note how cleverly the space is used in the plot and direct annotations to guide the reader. So beautifully designed plot. Okay, and then I also have several suggestions, and these are not rules, I would say, but suggestions that are sometimes useful and applicable. So one powerful way to attract attention of your readers And well, I tend to say attention a lot because I really believe that visualizing data is well, you're playing the game of grabbing the attention. One of the important roles of data visualization is to grab the attention. When people open the paper, they would usually read the title, read the abstract. If it's interesting, they would open the paper and go figure by figure, just checking what's in there. And if your plot can grab the attention and tell the story, it's great. If your medium allows it, quite often it's very beneficial to animate your plots, and then it's really appealing at it grabs attention even better. So I just want to show you. Here is a great example of a plot, animated plot that tells a story. Well, it can be, I think, 1,000 or 2,000 words story. How the US. So on the vertical axis here we have 50 US states, and time on the horizontal axis. And this is a story of developing the vaccine against missiles in 1963. And then you see the color encodes the number of missiles cases in the state. And when the vaccine was introduced, eventually the problem was just eradicated. Well, until recently, yeah. Another example is, well, the famous plot of the election results in the US. And here, Karim, the dataviz designer, just illustrates how we can be fooled by the area size in conventional choropleth maps. And instead of showing the area, he normalized the size of these bubbles to population size, yeah? And all of a sudden we see that it was a close tie, well, close run by Democrats and Republicans in these elections, yeah? So all of a sudden, the figure changes quite a lot. Okay, and another example from John is his famous bar chart race, the type of animated plot that I think he invented, or at least popularized. You can explore later. It's really fascinating how something as simple as a bar plot but animated can just grab your attention and have you sitting there in front of the screen paralyzed for several minutes, just watching how these bars are racing each other. Okay, reload. One super powerful tool to provide interactivity to data exploration is Shiny, and I know some of the talks today are scheduled on Shiny. So this is a great tool to give the reader all the flexibility exploring the data set. I'm running out of time, so I will. How many minutes do I have more to wrap up?
Maybe 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes is gracious. Thank you. Then I'll proceed. Okay, another suggestion. Well, again, it's not a rule. You cannot enforce people to be careful. Yeah, but I think when you work visualizing your data, it's oftentimes very useful to just take a pause and think about the nature of your data. And sometimes design choices can misrepresent your data quite a lot. So here is one example when it's a very popular mistake, not only in data visualization, but also in analysis. When you're dealing with ratios of any kind, the proper way to visualize the ratios would be to put them on a logarithmic scale. And basically, the intuition to this is that increase of 100% is equivalent by its magnitude to a decrease of 50%. Yeah, but if you put them on linear scale, it gets misrepresented. So both changes in this example are a change of a factor of 2. Yeah, So when you put your variable on a logarithmic scale, you basically go up and down by multiplication, and this exactly represents the nature of your data. And if you don't put your ratios on a log scale, which is a very common mistake, you can push your readers to wrong inferences in the data. Another example here is the popular visualization of excess deaths. So this is a concept that well, luckily became popular because this is it seems it's the only appropriate way to understand what is the scope of the pandemic. But quite often you would see in these plots that to better represent the axis, to focus on the axis, people would trim the vertical axis to go closer to the data. And it's a big mistake, because basically what these plots show is the ratio of the red area to the area below the baseline. So this is the percentage increase in the death counts. And if you trim your vertical axis, you visually misrepresent this ratio. And this ratio is the key information that you try to communicate. So thinking about the nature of the indicator that you're trying to visualize, that you aim to visualize, can sometimes help you to visualize it correctly, properly. And well, the last one I would say is dare experimenting. So rules are rules, but quite often it's beneficial to make a step beyond some line drawn by the rule. Yeah, here is a nice example, and I think I would copy this image and show it separately. So this image uses an interesting non-standard trick. So it rotates the space of the plot. Yeah. So we have our axis here at some weird angles, and the horizontal line in the plot is matched to the trend line in the data. And the plot shows the relationship between self-reported satisfaction and GDP per capita. So, and when the plot is rotated to represent the trend line as horizontal line, all of a sudden, all the countries that appear to be above the trend line, so it's very easy to distinguish them visually. These are sort of the countries that are happy for what they have here. And the countries below this line are the ones that are, well, more unhappy given their income level. Yeah. So, and this is an interesting and not a very common twist to the plot that I think in this particular case really helps to tell the story properly. And another example of the same twist. Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm having problems with managing my slides. So here is a plot by a football analyst, Peter McKeever, and well, you can read this line. He even explains how this exact idea of rotating the plot space 45 degrees helps you to tell the story in a different way and to tell it properly. So all of a sudden, the combination of your two variable becomes your top corner. Yeah. So you're looking at the interplay of the two variables that you are representing here, and it changes the story you're telling. And another example that I place here, well, this is just a very personal story for me. Developing this map, this ternary color coding scheme which we did together with Jonas Scholle, and well, he mostly coded the package tricolor that does it. Here in this map, we represent population age structures across European regions, and we managed to show, well, pretty complex story of differences in age structures in just one image. Yeah. So in gray color here, we have average European population structure. And if the colors move towards the pink spectrum, this means there are more kids in the population than on average in Europe. If we move to the bluish spectrum, that means there are more people at working ages, and yellow means more elderly people. And in just one image, you can see well, all the different stories of demographic histories of European countries, like Turkey, rural Turkey still just starting the demographic transition, yeah, and Eastern Europe still having this window of demographic opportunities. We can see capital cities as bright blue dots on the map, because these are the places where people at working ages come, and then the rural areas of Western Europe are pretty heavily aged by now. Yeah, so just a lot of information in one plot using a different technique. Okay, I prepared a link. I thought I may run out of time, but you may explore the coding example by this link on your own. And I'm sorry, I don't have time to show it now. In the slides, I also put several links to great resources that can help you take better data visualization decisions. So there are several great resources and 2 open books on data visualization that I really recommend. And the materials of the dataviz course by Jonas Scholle. And earlier in the slides, you can also see the materials of my dataviz course, so you can explore all the R code there. And yeah, thank you very much for the attention. Additionally, in the slides, I give you links to 2 RStudio conference talks. I think both of them are just brilliant. Thank you so much, and sorry I ran out of time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ilya, for this wonderful talk. I'm pretty sure all of us have learned 1 or 2 new things. And also, thank you so much, Dr. Cedric, for being with us here today. And so I'll ask you 1 question, and the rest of the questions, I'll send you the link, and please do answer them. And please check the Slido link that you are shared earlier for the answers. Okay, so let me ask just 1 question for now. Kindly comment on the 3D visualizations and the use of pie charts in representing categorical data.
So there are two usual triggers. So there are usually very strong opinions about 3D visualizations and very strong opinions about pie charts. And while usually those strong negative opinions are very well justified, I think I would not take a radical position here. So 3D plots can be useful if you use them in some interactive or using some interactive software. So sometimes they can help you identify irregularities in your data easier than alternatives like heat maps, for example. So if you can produce a shiny app with your 3D plot, and you can actually spin it around and explore. For exploratory data analysis, sometimes 3D plots are really useful. When they're printed in one static projection, quite often they are very difficult to understand properly. Pie charts, well, pie charts is a running joke. It's like Comic Sans of the academic world. Pie charts are, well, the same of the dataviz world. Yeah. Again, Pie charts are brilliant in communicating one important feature. So it's a ratio of part to the whole. I would say if you have up to 3 or 4 categories, maybe sometimes pie chart is okay. But also your categories should be distinguishable. There are always better alternatives to pie charts. So bar chart, for example, a simple bar chart usually works much better, but it doesn't communicate this ratio of part to the whole. Yeah. Or another great alternative is a tree map, when you just divide a rectangle in parts that represent proportions of your data. But it's hardwired somewhere in our perception that we humans love circular elements, and they make wonders. Like if you see something circular, it immediately attracts your attention. And that's probably one of the reasons why pie charts will never die.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ilya, for that. I hope the question was answered.